tonight, showers likely with a chance of thunderstorms, especially in the west. We'll have lows around 60. It's 5:30.
When she was president, my first year, she was like,
Oh, that was your first year?
Sherry, we're missing this.
They're gonna do lights.
Good evening. I'd like to call to order the Committee of a Whole for August 14th. And if Ms. Boak, if you could please call the roll.
Councilmember Wood,
Yes.
Councilmember Garza, Councilmember Hussein,
Here.
Councilmember Spatafor,
Present.
Councilmember Spitzley, Councilmember Jackson,
Present.
Councilmember Brown,
Present.
Councilmember Cost.
Here.
6 members present. You have a quorum of the committee.
And we do have excused absences for Councilmember Spitzley and Councilmember Garza. So with that, we have the minutes of July 24th. Councilmember Hussein.
Sure, I would move the meeting minutes for July 24th as presented.
We have a motion on the minutes. Are there any questions or concerns? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. This is the opportunity for public comment. If there's anyone in the audience that would like to make public comment, if you could please come up to the podium, state your name for the record, and you will have 3 minutes. Is there anyone that would like to make public comment?
How's everybody doing this evening?
Good, thank you. And sir, your name?
Ryan Cabell.
Okay, thank you.
My name is Ryan Cabell, owner of Energy Event Center. And I'd like to start off by saying each and every individual in these two parties, I send my deepest condolences out. Whether it be the individuals that pulled the trigger and the individuals that was victim of the trigger. Issue in 2023 didn't just start in 2023. As of 2023, it's only one word that we all need to focus on, and that's solution. We can't be separated when it comes to solution because these type of instances happen every day, whether it's in the church, whether it's at a car wash, whether it's at a grocery store, whether it's at a parking lot or a park. The key word is solution. My heart is beating right now, not because I'm nervous to be in front of you all. I'm a promoter that's been doing shows all across the country for over 15 years. I've been on TV 15 years. I've been on the radio 15 years. I've been an investor 15 years. I've been an employee at General Motors for 7 years. I'm accustomed to being around people. I'm a people person naturally. I'm 46 years old, never drank a day in my life. 46 years old, never smoked a day in my life. 46 years old, never done a drug a day in my life. 46 years old, I don't have a criminal background. 46 years old, I am a grandfather. I am a dad. I am a single dad. So I come here to speak on my behalf as a business owner. 2022, I did 8 events at the Causeway Bay. 8 huge events at the Causeway Bay Hotel. 2023, I did 2 huge events at Gregory's. I've had my cabaret license for 2 years. I've owned that business for 3 years. Over 3 years, I've invested $50,000 to $60,000 into this business, making it look right.
Thank you, sir. Your time is up.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Not a problem. Is there anyone else that would like to address the council at this time? Please state your name for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Good evening. How you doing? My name is Mark King. I'm a business owner in the Lansing community for over the last 30 years. I've been involved with entertainment businesses for a very long time. And I'm here to speak on behalf of this business owner, Mr. Ryan Cabell, and his Energy Event Center. As we all know, the city of Lansing has been trying to create opportunities for diversity in business ownership, as well as different creative ways of catering to our young people. This is nothing new. This is something we've all been going through for a while. I myself had a business over 20 years ago in which Carol Woods, Mr. Charles Ford, they gave me my cabaret license. That was 1991. So this thing with young people in entertainment is something that the city has been trying to get right for a long time. One thing that I don't want to happen is that this business owner, Mr. Cabell, has done everything right according to the rules of the city. He should not be denied an opportunity to have a law-abiding business in this city. I think you guys are premature in trying to revoke his cabaret. He hasn't been given a fair opportunity to work with the city and all the various departments in order to make this work. I want to make that clear. We have to look at everything, look at all the facts. When we're doing events, everyone has to be involved in the process. In case you didn't know, I'm one of the founders of the 420 Cannabis Festival in Lansing, the Smokers Ball Festival in Lansing, which draw 5,000 to 7,000 people. And there's a process. If we're gonna deal with large events, we all know the process, and Mr. Cabell should be given that same opportunity to have that process. And I thank you for your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to address the council at this time?
Michael Lynn, similar to the conversation we just had, when this all took place at Logan Square, I mean, I was as infuriated as everybody else was. I was in conversation with our ward member over there about what was going on as it was happening. It was really, really frustrating. And I didn't know Ryan at the time. I just knew that this event had taken place. What I'll say about the event and the space is obviously Logan Square has issues. What I really want to make sure we focus on is not hanging this brother up for the issues that have been going on in Logan Square for years and years that the city has not been able to wrap their hands around. And I feel like that's what this is. The mayor took, a lot of heat for his lack of response. The city attorney did as well as the police chief for their lack of response to the violence that's been going on for decades, but also for the last 5 years extensively. With that being said, I've been involved with most of the stuff going on here as far as the gun violence goes. I mean, from one aspect or the other, we work deeply in this stuff, grassroots, right on the ground with it. In most cases, we know both sides of the issue. And I can say that I think that a public lynching of this man's business in the fashion that it would be, without any type of explanation or conversation about trying to make it work for the young people, would be a travesty. So I think that as we came together over the last week, we had a peace march or a peace conversation at the Capitol. A lot of the people who are involved in this grassroots, right on the level with the shooters and victims and so on and so forth, came together and vowed that we will make sure we do what we have to do to make sure that the event center can stay open. That means if it's consulting to make sure that they have the proper understanding of the climate of the city, because that's something. It's a big deal. Knowing the climate of what's going on in the city at the time you throw an event. We've all said that we would put ourselves on the front lines to make sure that the next event that is done there would be cognizant of all issues and perspectives, whether or not it be changing the time, whatever the case is. So we said that, and I know this is just a setting of a public hearing, so I'm not going to get too in deep. I know there's going to be another time we can go through all of this, but I do want to touch on a couple things. The optics that the Lansing Police Department is under right now in the city of Lansing is just a travesty, but it's nothing new. What happened over the week with the 12-year-old young man in the police department was not not out of bounds for me as far as what I would expect. My expectations of the Lansing Police Department are very low. I've tried to work behind the scenes to make sure they have a good optic in the community by actually doing work and not just propaganda. I know there's a backpack giveaway this week that's going to pretty much make everybody in the city of Lansing forget this ever happened. So will this ebb and flow of people in uproar and uprising and mad about it will just go away? But I ask the council, because I know people are going to ebb and flow and get back to their normal lives. Do not let this fall on deaf ears. What happened in that parking lot was just 1 second away from that kid getting shot. I know it all too well. I'm scared of it. I've been warning about it. The way that VCI and the police department is handling our people in this community is going to end in tragedy. I'll speak more on this as we go along, but please don't let this issue fall on deaf ears and go away with the rest of the
Thank you,
community.
Michael. Is there anyone else that would like to address the council at this time? Anyone else? Seeing no one, we'll move on into the agenda. The first item that we have before us is the appointment of, that's right, I'm sorry. I skipped over you. Andy, if you could come forward, we have a presentation by Andy Kilpatrick on the recycling fee. There's been a lot of conversation about that, and so we wanted you to be able to come down here and explain to us the recycling fee.
All right. Thank you for the opportunity to present a little information. I'm sure I'm just going to have like a high level thing. If you have specific questions, a lot of them might be financial with expenses, and I can go through that with Emily in finance and try and figure out all those. But our cart operation is obviously trash, which is subscription based, and then recycling and yard waste is fee based. That goes on property taxes. It's assessed to parcels that have between 1 and 4 residential units. That's about 38,000 parcels that we assess that to, so roughly $4 million in revenue each year. The expenses on that are split basically 70-30. So 70% of that fee goes to recycling expenses, and the remaining 30 go to yard waste. So roughly like $85 to yard waste and 85 to recycling, 37 to yard waste. As you're aware, recycling is year-round, bi-weekly, curbside, and then we also have commercial recycling. If people want to do that on a subscription basis, just like trash, that is weekly. Yard waste is seasonal, early spring, and we kind of wait until the weather warms up, and we have hopefully seasonal employees to help out with that, and then it goes through late fall, generally through the end of November, sometimes the first week of December. The fee is set based on what our expenses are. Currently $122 per year for those residential properties. And what we do is we just look at our expenses each year and make sure that the fee covers those expenses. Any additional revenue that we might get over expenses, since it's an enterprise fund, goes back and stays in that fund, and we look at what that balance is to look at the rate, what it should be the following year. Our trucks overall in cart, and those are primarily shared on the recycle side between trash and recycling. We do have 2 dedicated yard waste trucks, and the difference with those is they don't have the arm that grabs the carts, because all of the yard waste bags and bundles are thrown manually. So an employee can throw between 800 to 1,000 bags or bundles per day. So those trucks are 2002 and 2004 are those trucks, and we are just replacing those this year. Industry standard is somewhere between 10 and 13 years is about the length that a trash or recycle truck will last, and so obviously ours, those oldest ones being 19, 21 years, so 20 in general. We are trying to replace those. As I think everyone who's purchased anything in the last couple of years realizes, costs have gone up significantly, and the lead time on large equipment like that has increased as well. So we're up to a year out sometimes in ordering these trucks. But we are looking to replace 2 trucks per year in the entire cart system, so trash, recycling, yard waste, and 2 per year. And the hope is then within about 10 years, we will have the maximum age of our trucks down to 11 years, which would be within industry standards. Look at my notes a little bit now. But our cost increase has been, generally, it's about $2 per year. So it's less than 2%, which is below the cost of inflation or the inflationary increase. And that's going back a number of years. Obviously, this fee has been in place for a long time. It's something I think Lansing was a leader with recycling at that point in time. And there have been some changes in dynamics with recycling. We did have all of that recycling go to our operations and maintenance campus. We would compact all that, load that into trucks, send it down to the Detroit area where it would be processed. And then in 2021, we had a private processor, material recycling or recovery facility, a MRF, open up on Pennsylvania Avenue, which eliminated the need to truck and process that. That agreement came with a 7,500 ton minimum for the processing fee, and right now, I don't know if it's pandemic related or what, our tonnage, which was around 7,000 tons, kind of pre-pandemic, this last year that we have full data for in 2022, dropped about 20%. So we're now at like 5,600 tons per year that we're collecting. Last year, we did a participation and contamination study where we actually had people that went out in advance of our recycle carts to look at what was in them, try and educate people on contamination. And we also looked at participation rates over a 2-month period. The participation rate there was 63% of the kind of eligible households actually set out a cart in that 2-month period. So at least a third of our customers are not taking advantage of recycling. We don't know necessarily the reason for that, but contamination rates are fairly low for industry standards. We're at roughly 8 to 10%. And East Lansing, by comparison, for the stuff that they're taking to the same facility is 15 to 20%. And that may be because of the transient nature of students or other reasons. But we have fairly clean recyclables, but unfortunately, our total tonnage is going down, and we need to reverse that. We are going to be implementing a drop-off center next year. We have a grant from Eagle to do that at our operations and maintenance campus. So we're hoping that will increase the tonnage that we are collecting, which will go to that center. We're definitely
Andy,
open.
can you move
Yes.
that mic just a little bit closer?
Closer?
Yeah.
Yes, sorry.
Thank you.
Better?
Yeah.
Okay. Normally I speak too loud, and I'm told, especially when I'm on the phone, I speak too loudly, so I'm sorry. So I will speak up or have it closer. As far as staffing, we have 10 employees that do yard waste and recycling, and we rely on seasonals for a full complement of that collection. It's been very difficult to find seasonals with a CDL over the last several years, even though we're paying $22 plus per hour. So we've been doing our collection with full-time employees, which means we're generally taking them from other work groups. I think there's been question about the cost of that, and are we saving money? Well, obviously, full-time employees are more expensive because of the benefits and everything than seasonal employees. So it's been a benefit to some work groups because some of those folks are on loan to recycling and yard waste. But for the recycling and yard waste component, we're actually paying more for that than we would for seasonal. So it's kind of sort of a wash. They might be more efficient because they know the routes, but we are paying full-time employees versus seasonals just because it has been difficult to find those seasonal employees. Overall, cost-wise, between 55 and 65% of our operating costs are staffing costs. So either, direct salaries, benefits, pension, OPEB type of costs, and then the remaining of those are essentially either the processing cost at the material recovery facility or when we drop off our yard waste at Hammond Farms or Granger. Obviously, we pay per cubic yard to drop that off. So, see if I missed any on my notes here. Just as far as overall tonnage, I mentioned on the recycling side, but yard waste, we will collect anywhere between 14 and 20,000 cubic yards of compacted yard waste per year, with an average being just above 15,000 cubic yards, and that's equivalent to about 260,000 bags, 30-gallon bags of yard waste each year. If you were to look at the $37 fee, the 30% that goes to yard waste, if a resident were to take that to Hammond Farms or Granger and drop that off, they could take about 16 bags for an entire year before they'd be paying more than that $37. So it's a very cost-effective solution. They don't have to load it up themselves. They get curbside, and right now there is unlimited yard waste. Some of the reasons that we have gone to every other week during the summer months is our volume drops way down. We are still collecting unlimited, but yes, that does create some issues that some people may have to hold on to their yard waste for 2 weeks versus 1 week. We are finding, as we do with trash, that some people set out yard waste whenever they want to, and it doesn't matter on what day. If they go out and mow their yard on a Saturday or Sunday, they'll set out their yard-based waste bags or bundles then, no matter when their collection day is. So that's something we definitely need to address. We do have provisions for that. That's about all kind of notes I have, and if you have questions, I can incorporate those into the bullets that I kind of went over and sent those to you, so you have those, and we will put that information on the city's website as well.
Okay, we'll open it up for questions from council members. Council member questions? Council member Cost.
Thank you, President Wood. You said unlimited for now with the waste bags. Is there a plan to change that?
There is not currently a plan. There has been discussion about that internally because we have some cases where we have a single resident that might put out 50 bags of waste, and that's really more than they're paying for an entire year, and that's something different than some other communities do. But at the moment, there has not been any decision on that. If we did something like that, it would probably be unlimited in the spring and fall and limited during the summer months. That most people in general, I think, say 10 or 15 bags should be enough to put out during the middle of the summer when leaves aren't falling and all they might be putting out is grass clippings or a couple, limbs here and there that might fall from a storm.
And then you talked about the Recycling Enterprise Fund. Is there a balance that we keep in that?
There is. Right now, I believe, so the last audited kind of financials are for fiscal '22, and that balance was $2.3 million. Before then, over the last several years, it was about 275 million. And that's something that obviously we look at. Recycling and the commodity prices are still in flux as we're trying to figure that out. And so once we that's more stable on that side, we'll know what kind of revenue we'll be getting in for the sale of those commodities. And then we can have a kind of more certain approach to looking at the future and seeing what that fee should be, and also figure in what our trucks are going to cost, because obviously we want to get that truck age down so we're not repairing that as much. So our repair bills should be going down, but our truck purchases over the next several years will be going up. So we need to look at that. And so that enterprise fund, trash is separate from recycling and yard waste. Recycling and yard waste are combined. But yeah, that enterprise fund does have and you can look at your internal auditor or others that know the financial side, but I'm looking at what we call equity and pooled cash, which I look at as kind of our available savings account that we'd have to come to council to get an allocation to spend that. But that's really the amount we're looking at there of what would be available if we need that for operating or capital purchases.
And then one last thing. Has there been any discussion about expanding what people can recycle?
So yes, but we are limited to what our processor will take. So in the past, with our previous processor going down to the Detroit area, pots and pans were something that we were able to take. What we call bulky rigid plastic, so your Little Tykes playset and your pails and that type of thing, we're able to go in there. Our current processor does not take that. We are hoping with our drop-off center, we might be able to have additional materials we can pick up that way and drop those off in bulk. We will also be able to, just like some of the other drop-off centers, be able to accept polystyrene if we have some, styrofoam. So that would be something that could be then we'd work with DART to take that. So that'd be on the drop-off side, probably not on the curbside collection side.
Yeah, I would like to see something with DART. I see that they've set that up all over the country, and that's kind of a pet peeve of mine. So
Yep.
Appreciate what you mentioned in that. Thanks.
Are there other questions at this time? Councilmember Hussein.
Yeah, real quickly. So with regard to the seasonals, what you're telling me, so it's not an issue of HR, posting of positions, testing, interviewing, offering of the position. It's a thin applicant pool and the issue with the CDL.
I think what we found is there are a lot of places that pay more than us if someone has a CDL. So that would be something that we can look at, potentially increasing that. We'd have to, open up the collective bargaining agreement or get some sort of concurrence on that to pay those folks more, which could then, trigger discussions on our full-time employees. Well, if you're paying your seasonals more, why don't we get more? I think some of it also could go to the fact that our process does take longer than on a private side to hire folks. So if we have some people going through the process, they may also, have another offer before the city can get back to them. So I'm not saying that there aren't things we can do to improve our process, but a lot of times, even though we post the wage rate, once we get around to making the offer, people will say, well, that's $2 less than I can get even at, call it a McDonald's or that type of, job.
Yeah, just because I don't want the thought to escape me, we do at some point, I think, need to bring in HR and talk about where we are at right now in terms of timeline, because I'm hearing in some departments where, some 8 to 10 weeks between actually, posting and then testing and interviewing and bringing folks in. And so when you talk about the market as is, you talk about folks that are ambitious and they're job seekers, and that's just not cutting it. But again, I know there are other issues. So can you tell me, Andy, with absolute certainty, in terms of your time as a public service director, that with regards to this enterprise fund, none of these dollars that are in this particular fund, when we talk about recycling and yard waste, that none of that's been used anywhere else? It's sat in that fund, used to
As far as I know. I mean, I don't run finance, so I don't know where things go, but yes, the intent
I just
is
wanted to be, yeah.
everything in all of our enterprise funds should stay in those enterprise funds. Now, there are, if you want to get into some nuances, like does O&M or does trash and recycling pay for the land that they occupy to the city? Who owns that? The answer is no. There's no rent paid there. But as far as revenue coming in, the revenue stays in that enterprise fund. And as long as we are tracking employees, as far as the hours they're spending on that, in that enterprise fund and the equipment, the hours that spends, they are being tracked appropriately and the money stays in the enterprise fund.
Okay. And then the last question for me, and I'm going to ask you this every single time you're in front of us. I think it's part educational for people that are watching, and then part advocacy. Have we done anything further in terms of investigating routes, the way that we actually schedule routes, particularly, and I'm talking really across CART. And the reason I'm asking the question, of course, is that when there are delays, of course, those issues are exacerbated on the south end because we're starting on the north end. And then with regards to clearing of snow, we know that more times than not always, but more times than not, we're starting on the north end of the city. So have we done anything else to discuss that?
We are looking at on the kind of route balancing side, because obviously the yard waste routes, trash routes, recycle routes are all kind of combined. And as we increase the number of customers, we have some routes that have fewer customers now than others. And so we are looking at balancing that. But you're entirely correct that the way we do snow clearing is we look at where our trash recycle trucks will be next. And because we operate 4 days a week, if snow falls on a Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, depending on when it falls on the Sunday, we will be out clearing those Monday routes first. And the Monday routes, as you point out, they are on the north side of the city. And when we get behind, we have started now to leapfrog a little bit. So if we are, several days behind, we won't necessarily completely do Monday routes before moving to Tuesday or Wednesday. But in the past, when we were pandemic, we may have been a week or 2 weeks behind early in the spring. And yes, we were just kind of doing them in the order that they were, which means some folks on the south side would have their yard waste, depending when they put it out longer than other folks. Yes.
Are there other questions for Mr. Kilpatrick? A couple that I have for you. What are we making right now from our sale of our commodities?
That changes every month when they sell that, so I will have to get back with you. We have multiple commodities. The most valuable ones are any aluminum that gets in there and corrugated cardboard, then paper. Plastic is virtually, I don't want to say worthless, but really you'd pay about as much to throw that away at the landfill as you do, get for the sale of that, just because by weight it's kind of dime a dozen. But I can get you what the current commodity prices are for when those are sold, and that's all kind of bundled together. What they look at is they look at our percentage of different type of materials that come in, and that's the revenue we get back. So they don't necessarily set the city of Lansing's aside and East Lansing's in another pile, and we get that exact amount or those percentages. They just looked at an audit and kind of the percentage of the stream that's coming in. That's what we get that based on. But I can get you the tonnage amounts and the current commodity prices they're being sold for.
And I know at one time the discussion for the MRF was the fact that we had to supply so much tonnage, and if we didn't, then we had to pay them.
That is correct. We have a minimum on the processing side of 7,500 tons, whether we supply them 1 ton or 9,000 tons, we are paying for them to process 7,500 tons. So that's why it's important for us to get our tonnage up. Right now we're below that, and so we're basically paying for tonnage to be processed that we're not delivering. And then we're not getting the commodity price for that either. So that's why we're trying to get that up and look for other opportunities. We might be able to partner with other communities.
Councilmember Spatafor, I think you had a follow-up.
Yeah, thank you. Can you just remind me, Andy, the reason that we had that minimum was because we didn't lay out the capital to build the facility, is that correct?
Exactly. It's a private facility, and they would not come to the Lansing area unless they were guaranteed kind of a minimum stream of recyclables coming to that to invest that money.
Got it, thank you.
Okay. So if we were to explain the recycling fee to a resident, and we're saying that of the $122 that the recycling fee is, 70% of that is to take care of the recycling, 30% of that takes care of yard waste, and in those, that pays for the trucks, the staffing, and then the cost of processing.
Correct. Correct. Either the disposal fee for the yard waste or the processing fee for the recyclables.
Okay. And are we getting anything for the yard waste when we take it?
No, we pay to have that dropped off for them, accept them. That in the past, when we had a significant amount of, it wouldn't be yard waste, it would basically be branches and everything the forestry
Right.
cut at Kriego, we got a pretty good price on grinding that up because at that point in time, Hammond Farms was looking for material. But you really almost can't find anyone that wants to take yard waste. Nor do you find anyone that, if we were to look at a private contractor, no one wants to pick it up either because you're picking up these bags manually, and that's not something that really there's money in.
Okay.
But it keeps it out of the landfills. So,
Yeah.
it's good to process it that way because it goes into, wood chips and mulch.
Yes, Councilmember Cost.
Yeah, just quick thought on that, on the bags. Has there ever been discussion with the big Michigan State next door agricultural school of doing our own, because it's compost, of using that soil, making soil and using it?
We have kind of done some preliminary looks at that, but to find a site and then the equipment to process that, we thought unless we were able to get more communities in the area to participate in it, the capital costs would be prohibitive for us. Plus, there's obviously operating costs to operate that. But if we were to partner with someone, whether that facility is in Lansing or in East Lansing at MSU's campus or something, as a regional facility, it could make sense, but city only, it probably would not be feasible.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? None? All right, we want to thank you for coming down and
Thank you.
answering those questions. And if you could get back that information to us, we would appreciate it.
Will do.
Thank you. Okay, that takes us into our first resolution, which is an appointment of Sharon Silvas for the at-large Board of Review. Sharon, are you here? Thank you. If you'd come down and if you could sit in the same seat that Mr. Kilpatrick was at, that would be fine. And then Sharon, once you get settled, if you would push the button, the green light will come on the microphone in front of you. You'll see a button right, yep. Did you see a green light come on?
Yeah.
Okay, terrific. We want to thank you for coming down here this evening. And normally what we do as part of the appointment process is we ask you to tell us a little bit about yourself and why you'd like to serve on the Board of Review and your experience that might help in that board. So I'll open it up to you right now.
Wowie gazowie. So, good evening to everyone. I'm glad to be here. I've been a resident now of the city of Lansing for a little bit over 27 years. I am now a retiree of the state government. I worked for information technology where we produced all the registrations, the license plates for the entire state of Michigan. I was the supervisor over that, running the mainframe. Also, we kept all the information where the state troopers could tie into that same information to see if anyone they stop had any types of warrants or tickets or whatever might be. The reason I really would like to be a part of the board is to really get a good understanding. I'm right now working with the seniors at our church, and these are citizens that have paid their dues, have worked 30, 40, 50 years, and they're concerned about their homes. They don't understand everything. I'm the first vice president over this ministry, and they ask questions. And I said, I'm going to get them answers. And the only way I can do that is to have a seat at the table to understand myself so I can impart onto them of what it is that they're doing. They're like, why do I pay so much in this area, but my friend Louise, who lives in East Lansing, maybe don't pay what I pay? So I knew a little bit about jurisdictions, and all different areas can make their own type of payment of what you will pay. Everything's is different. But to get the real bottom line of it, to understand it, I said the only way I'll do that is to get trained, educated, and then I can come back and impart that kind of information.
Okay, all right. With that, I would open it up for council members for questions. Are there any questions for Sharon? I see none, and she happens to live in your ward, so I will turn it over to Councilmember Hussein.
Sure. I happily move the resolution for appointment of Sharon Sibbles as an at-large member of the Board of Review.
We have a motion before us. Any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. Now, Sharon, that will be on the agenda this evening. You're more than welcome to stay if you would like, and you could be sworn in this evening. Or if you'd rather go home and come in another day to the clerk's office and be sworn in, you can do that as well. So
No, I think I better stay because I'm going to have to work at MSU. I didn't say that. I was offered the opportunity to be a proctor where I test our soon-to-be doctors in osteopathic medication,
okay.
and also for the College of Veterinary.
all right. Well, the council meeting will start at 7, and we'll have that first on the agenda after we start into the meeting.
All
So
righty.
thank you.
I thank you so much to all of you.
Yes, we look forward to having you serve.
All right.
Our next resolution before us is Dale Schroeder for an at-large member to the Board of Water and Light for a term that would expire June 30th, 2027. Dale, if you could please come forward and take a seat at the table. And Sharon showed you how it was done, so if you...
Looks like it's already on, so, okay.
Yeah. If you would tell us a little bit about yourself and why you'd like to serve on the Board of Water and Light.
Yeah, it's a really exciting time for energy and the Board of Water and Light with renewable energies, everything that's happening, climate change, battery plant being built outside of Lansing, energy requirements. It just is something I've always been interested in, electric cars. I'm an environmentalist. I owned an environmental cleanup business or emergency response environmental cleanup business for 24 years and sold it. I've been a 20-year resident of Lansing and currently president of the Walnut Neighborhood Association. I served on the Sustainability Commission since its inception. And so a lot of this recycling and so forth, I already knew all about that. But as far as the Board of Water and Light, I think I just really think my background in water pollution control, groundwater cleanup, piping systems, having my own business for 24 years, I learned that you have to actually bring in more money than you spend, which sounds simple, but it's something you have to look at. And I just really think it's an exciting time to be in that position. I've been looking for some way to serve. I've been here a long time, and this one just seems right for me. So.
Well, I know you've done a lot of service for the community, and you were helped spearhead the Moores Park revitalization, so we want to thank you for that.
Thank you.
So at this time, we'll open it up for questions, and I was going to go right to you, Councilmember Jackson.
Thank you, Dale, for being here. President Wood knew to come to me because I always vet the Board Water and Light Commissioners because I think it's one of the most important commissions that we have. And normally, it's good to have people like you who are community-oriented, have a great background and a great reputation and mean very well to join the boards. It's just with the Board Water and Light, I just want to ask a few more questions.
Sure.
What is your opinion of the climate crisis?
Well, I think there is a climate crisis. I do believe that that's true. I think we have to do our best to try to limit the climate crisis. Like I said, I've been an environmentalist. I've been involved in environmental cleanups, so I understand that the process of pragmatically what you have to do to get things done. And I would be one of the voices for the environment.
Thank you. And just in follow-up, so I've heard a few people say there'll be voices for the environment, which I do believe, but I went to a few meetings and it was a lot of silence when major things were being unrolled and unveiled for the first time. So, and one thing you said, you used the word exciting and climate crisis together, even though you said other things. You said it's the Board Water and Light, it's an exciting time, and then there's some other things.
Yeah, maybe exciting isn't the right word. It's exciting because we're moving, to me it's exciting because we're moving to electric cars, battery plants, things like that. That part is exciting. The climate crisis isn't exciting. I think it's a tragedy. And we have to look into that. We have to address it. And I have a lot to learn. But I do know that they've got a pretty ambitious plan. If they need to be held to it, I believe. So that's 50%. I think it's by 2030. 50% renewable energy by 2030. Some things like that. I would be one to try to hold them to that.
Thank you. What do you think your role as a commissioner is for the climate crisis?
To hold them to that, to the goals that I saw that they already have. I would do my best to be on the side of renewable energy and every time you get a chance to try to go towards that instead of against it. Sometimes, there are times where, like this battery plant that's being built, outside of Lansing, it's going to require energy, a lot of energy. It's kind of ironic because you're building a battery plant, and which is a good thing in the long run, but they require a tremendous amount of energy. So how do you do that? This is the part that I find, just fascinating, that you are going to have to make decisions as to how do you do that, and I will always push as far as I can towards renewable energies.
Do you think that natural gas is a clean energy?
it's about 50% cleaner than coal. So coal hasn't been good. I don't believe it's clean. No, I don't believe it's a clean energy, but it's lesser of evils is the way I look at it.
When you say a lesser of evils, are you talking about it being burnt, or are you including the entire process from natural gas extraction to transportation to being burned?
I don't consider it a clean energy. I do not consider natural gas a clean energy, and I'm looking towards when there are some, you just have to do it sometimes at the present time, and it's a lot better than coal.
Thank you. Another question. Did you have any conversations with any of the local environmental groups like Capitol Area Friends of the Environment or Sierra Club or League of Conservation Voters?
Well, I have been in touch with some of them, not the ones you mentioned, but the Mid-Michigan Environmental Action Council. I know a lot of people on that, and we've been working hard on different things like some taking, when you demolish a building, everything goes to the landfill, and we've been trying to form salvage facilities and things like that, for some of the building materials. So that's just another area I'm interested in is the recycling and but I'm not familiar with the other two groups you mentioned.
Are you going to be able to ask the hard questions to, like, for example, Dick Pelfrey or any of the people as a commissioner?
I'm going to try. I'm going to do my best.
You obviously wasn't paying attention, Brian, when he was asking the tough questions about Moore's Park and stood down here, so.
I know his history on that.
They know me. I'll just say this. Board of Water and Light knows me, and they know my background has not always been in agreement with them. I mean, some of you remember the whole substation and all that sort of thing, and we fought really hard on that. And to have them, they know I'm not going to agree with everything they do. They already know that. I've spoken with them, and that I don't know what to expect, but I don't think they're going to be. I don't think they're going to be looking for somebody just to agree with them on every single subject. I don't know. I haven't gotten there yet, so I'll do my best to not let that happen.
And the last question is, would you be willing to work to gain understanding, to be able to ask the hard questions, because it's such an area of expertise and experience and all these technical things that a lot of us don't have those backgrounds. So
Yeah,
be able to.
I would. Yes, I would. And I welcome, anyone coming to me. Try to be transparent. Come to me if you've got a question or something. If there's any questions about anything. And I'm hoping that, my experience will be a contribution to them. As far as some of these air pollution control, piping, groundwater treatment. So, yes. So your answer to your question is yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Are there other questions? Councilmember Hussein.
Well, I think Councilman Jackson did a great job with his line of questioning, and you held up well. I know your work. I've appreciated your work. You're a tremendous asset to this community. That being said, we ask every single person that comes down in the well for this particular board. Could you see yourself in the future ever supporting the sale of our public utility to a private company?
So it's funny because I used to actually think that was a good idea, and you never say never to anything. But at the present time, I do not support that. I think it's pretty unique that a city owns a utility company and the size and scope of Board of Water and Light, and to be nimble enough to have the governor come to the general manager of Board of Light and meet and land I don't know how $1.5 billion project is one of the main reasons they get that is because the energy is available here and they can do it and make it happen. So at the present time, I would say I do not agree with that, but it's like anything else. I'm open.
Is that Dale, one of the questions I normally ask a person that comes before me in any committee, first of all, the fact that you are going to represent at large, how are you going to communicate with the community about issues that are coming forward to the board, and how do you see that role being played out?
That's a really good question. And I'll never be as good as you are, Carol, on that, So, but I will have to do something. I'm not sure yet. Some sort of newsletter or some sort of Facebook. I don't know yet. I really don't. But I'm looking forward to trying to communicate with everyone that has a question about it.
I encourage you. We have Councilmember Jackson, who has a Fourth Ward constituency on the fourth Saturday of the month. Then you have Councilmember Cost, who has it on the first Saturday of the month. Councilmember Hussein and Councilmember Garza, who have it on the second Saturday of the month. So, if you're able to attend periodically, those to bring updates or to supply them with information, I would encourage you to do that.
Sure. I will try to do something like that.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions? Seeing none, Councilmember Hussein.
Sure. I would move the resolution of appointment for Dale Schrader as an at-large member of the Board of Water and Light Board of Commissioners.
We have a motion before us. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. And Dale, the
Thank
same
you.
message to you if you'd like to stay. At 7 o'clock, we'll be having the council meeting, and you can get sworn in at that time. Or if you need to leave after this evening, you can be sworn in at the clerk's office.
I'll be back. I'm going to go get my wife.
Okay, all right.
Thank you.
you.
Thank you.
Okay, that takes us to resolution for a liquor license for Red Cedar LLC. This is the new hotel that is opening up. We have all the sign-offs. This reason it's coming before committee of a whole is they had hoped to have the liquor license by the 18th. For students and that are coming back. And so, Councilmember Hussein.
Do you want me to move the?
Yep.
Okay. I would move the resolution to get out in front of us. And this is the, for the liquor license, sorry, CP Lansing. Red Cedar LLC.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Are there any questions on this? Seeing none? Oh, you're here. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, hi, good evening. I'm Steve Grobel. I'm the liquor licensing attorney for the applicant CP Lansing Red Cedar. With me is Tim Ellis, who's the general manager. I understand Tim's been in front of you a number of times. So I'm happy to hear that you were ready to move, but since I drove all the way from Detroit, I'll give you my,
you need to,
my
you know,
2-minute
get your
spiel and earn my
clients.
fees. So,
Yeah.
We're the liquor licensing applicant for that dual branded Hyatt House AC hotel by Marriott that's going up on Michigan Avenue, and we're very excited. We are very close to opening first stage later this week, rolling out with the grand opening at the end of the month. We do have a conditional liquor license from the MLCC right now, which gives us the ability to sell alcohol at our Toscana, our Italian steakhouse when it opens, and our lobby bar. So we are still awaiting our permanent license transfer. We are close, but we do have a license, but obviously we need the approval and the blessing of the city in order to continue. And I thank you for taking us up now, given our timing in terms of when we hope to open. I did want to just point out a couple of things. Tim mentioned to me that the facility is going to bring 280 full and part-time jobs to to the area. So we're very excited about that. The facility's being managed by Concord Hospitality Enterprises. So Concord is a nationwide developer and manager of hotels. They manage approximately 100 across the country. Right now they do the Courtyard by Marriott right here in Lansing is one of the others that they do. So they're very experienced, they're very trustworthy, and they put the highest priority on following the rules, particularly MLCC and city rules. So we are very excited to be here in Lansing. We're very excited to finally get open, and we are happy to answer Tim. I know as I brought Tim here for operations questions, anything you may have, if you want to know what's on the menu at Toscana or anything else, I'm sure Tim can answer it for you. But
Do we have any questions from council members? Councilmember Jackson.
Thank you. To the attorney, since you drove all the way over here, are you familiar with the new trend of dry hotels and steakhouses?
Well, I've got a sophomore in college, so I hope it's not really a big trend. But to answer your question, no, not particularly. I mean, certainly there are a number of colleges and a number of hotels that do not have liquor licenses, and we're certainly well aware of that. I'm not aware of that particular trend. Obviously, my business relies on those that are going that other direction. So, but I know that obviously there's some that are making obviously that conscious decision for whatever reason, so that consumers have a choice there, and that's fine. That's okay. There should be choice for folks for whom the presence of alcohol is not what they're looking for. That's okay. That's okay. But in this instance, for what Hyatt House and AC want to do, where they are, the potential client they're catering to here in the college town, football weekends, basketball games, it was important to them to have the ability to serve some alcohol for its clientele.
Thank you.
Okay, we've got a motion. Yes.
I just want to point out, if you look at the resolution, the social district is not being approved by the resolution. It'll be a separate action.
Right. This is just the liquor license. The social district is going to be referred tonight, so we'll be taking that up later. Not this evening, but at another time. With that, we have a resolution before us. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you very much, gentlemen. It'll be on the agenda. It's on the agenda for this evening for our 7 o'clock meeting.
Thank you. Did you want us to? Is it appropriate for us to come back then at 7 for that?
If you would like to, I don't necessarily see a reason why you need to. Okay. Pardon? Billable. Okay. I'll let your client decide.
My wife would like me home, and
okay.
would probably prefer that I didn't. But obviously, not having done this with you before, I didn't want to be presumptuous. So
okay.
If that's okay, I think we'll head home.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. The next item before us is a discussion on the Board of Public Service Rules of Procedure. Council members, as you are well aware, boards and advisory boards, their rules of procedure come to council. We have two options. One is to place them on file, or two is to send them back if we've got issues with some of the changes that have been made. All the changes in the Public Service Board have to do with membership, and it talks about changing certain rules in here where if we're looking on page 1, an affirmative vote of 5 members president at a board to the majority. And the reason a number of the boards have made those changes to read like that is because they've had troubles getting quorums or having enough members appointed at one time. So the only changes that you will find in the Public Service Board is taking the qualifying 5 members out and changing it to a majority of the current members serving. And that would mean those that have been appointed. Are there any questions on these? Seeing no questions, then I'd ask for a motion to place on file.
I would move to place on file.
All right, I have a motion to place on file. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. Since there's going to be the next 1, 2, 3 have to do with going over the ordinance for the HRCS board, let's move down to item J and item K, and then that way if we get held up with setting these public hearings by going through there, we'll make sure that we move through this. And we'll turn it over to the city attorney for item J.
Want to make sure I have the right agenda here. J is the repealing of Chapter 73, discrimination.
Yep, 273.
273, yes. This is an ordinance that would repeal the...
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought it was... I guess I don't have the back to my agenda. Let me see.
Okay.
Okay, we're holding K. What I was looking at is L.
I don't have that either.
Okay.
Yeah. L, for those that don't have it, L is the resolution for setting a hearing for the revocation of the cabaret license for energy events. And we received a letter that's being referred from the police department and with a request. So, Mr. City Attorney.
I can address this. This is regarding the recent events that occurred at Logan Square with the use of some firearms and some injuries. There was a cabaret license that is being proposed to be revoked as a result of that incident. And the procedure for the revocation is for the council to appoint a hearing officer to hear it's a public meeting, to handle the hearing on the possible revocation. The decision would then be submitted to the council for approval. And there is a report that has been filed with the city clerk for reference, and I believe you have it in your packet, that provides the reasons for proposing a revocation.
Thank you. So what this would be is determining a hearing officer, and the recommendation is that the hearing officer would be Elizabeth O'Leary, that there would be a hearing held on August 24th at 1 p.m. With the hearing officer, and then after a hearing is done, there will be a recommendation that will come from Ms. O'Leary back to this council, and then we will weigh the recommendation and determine how we would move forward. So, with that, we need a motion.
Yeah, and because we still have Mr. Cabell on hand, just so he's aware, that hearing will actually take place right here. So 10th floor, City Council chambers, okay? And of course, what we are looking to do is afford Mr. Cabell with his rights to due process. All right. With that being said, I would move the resolution where we are both setting a hearing and also designating Ms. Elizabeth O'Leary as the hearing officer.
Councilmember Jackson.
Thank you. I would just hesitate to appoint Ms. O'Leary as the hearing officer, and I probably won't vote for that just because she's a city employee whose job is to support and negotiate with various unions, and the police are part of the union. And it just doesn't seem independent enough when we have a city department, a city employee, and it's just too connected. And since I'm not sure that what exactly our discretion is, I think that we can appoint anyone. I would just probably vote no for her. And I do realize that she'll probably still go on, and it may be fine, but that's just the reason for my no vote.
And just for council's edification, the last time that we did a hearing like this, Nick Tate, was the hearing officer at that time. So this is not unprecedented to have the labor relations person be the hearing officer. So with that, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Let the record reflect that it has passed. The next, we'll take up K real quick. That's a discussion on the Diversity and Equity and Inclusion Board Rules of Procedure. This is the first time that these have come to us. I don't know whether council members have had an opportunity to review them or not. Are there any questions about the rules and procedures? The Diversity and Equity. Okay, Councilmember Hussein.
Yeah, I had an opportunity to read through it. It was pretty interesting. The only thing I noticed in it, maybe it was on my end and I was missing something, but there's no section 9. So we actually go from section 8 to 10. I don't know if you recognize that. So it's just a little typo that needs to be fixed. Yeah.
Okay, if we can have them correct.
Yeah, I've already made changes.
Yeah, we can have them make.
Seen a 9.
No. We're reviewing that ordinance right now, and we will be proposing changes here in the near future.
To the
And
rules?
To the rules?
We're on the rules.
I'm sorry, I thought you were on the
No.
cabaret license.
No,
Okay.
no.
All right, we can make that change.
Okay. So with the change, we need a motion
I would move to accept and place on file.
with the,
With the appropriate change, yes.
okay. That takes care of that one. Now, let's move back up and start with G. This is, Jim, would you like to start the explanation of these?
Well, this really refers to the next 4 resolutions. It was
Yeah.
an analysis that was done under the charter as to the powers of an advisory board. And this was done and presented to the advisory board itself. And what changes you'll see throughout here, there may be some repealers because of administrative functions that are not allowable to advisory boards, such as adjudicating civil rights complaints. So all of these changes basically massage the language so that it's recommending and advisory and not decision-making. And that's what you'll see throughout uniform, because it's an advisory board under the charter, and administrative functions are prohibited under the charter for an advisory board.
Okay, let's start with G. The changes in G, if you would look on page 2, line 6, 7, and 8. Those are added to this. The evaluation examination of the elements of the basic human services is reserved to the HRCS, and the HRCS Advisory Board may make recommendations in connection with the evaluation and awarding of grants. Are there any questions on that? Councilmember Cost.
So I see the word recommendation in here, Jim. So, I mean, what I'm getting is all of these are going to change this wording around to recommendations and take the teeth that they have. Because this was written by the law office, correct? And this has been,
It was written, I think, 20 years ago and then amended again. I'm not sure exactly.
so it's been the law for
I was-
20 years?
Yeah, I've been asked to
1996
review,
it was written.
I've been asked to review it in connection with the charter. That review was done. We issued an opinion, and these ordinance changes are a reflection of that opinion. But also, the department had other changes, and those are reflected in some places here also.
You said you were asked to review. Who asked to review this?
The department,
The department head or someone that in the
the
department?
department head.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, is there any question to, yes, Councilmember Jackson?
Thank you. Does this have anything to do, or the revision have anything to do with the recent executive order that changed the complaint process at all?
I missed the last words that you said.
Does this review changes have anything to do with the executive order about a month or so ago that changed or redefined the police complaint process?
No, absolutely not. This started a few months ago.
Okay, Councilmember Brown.
Oh, thank you, President Wood. From my understanding in the charter, we have, I think, 2 or 3 different types of board: administrative board, advisory board, and I think review board. So my question, Mr. Shmerka, is if you're making these type of changes to an advisory board, we have multiple advisory boards throughout the city, why would we be trying to change the language in this advisory board versus all of them if there was an issue or not reviewing it at the, at the city level to say, hey, in the charter, the advisory board language needs to change? It seems really odd that it would be something for one advisory board with specific changes.
You are correct. There's an administrative board, which is the Board of Water and Light, and I believe that's the only one. Review boards are statutory boards such as planning boards, zoning boards, things of that nature, and then there are advisory boards. The advisory boards are found in Section 5-106 of the city charter, and then it follows that. Because, and the answer to your question is because we were requested to do this by the department director. We don't just initiate unless there's an apparent issue that we have to look at. But if someone requests us, like any council requests us to do things, we follow. But
What was the purpose of the request?
you'd have to ask the department director. Thinking that the director was thinking perhaps that there were administrative functions that should not be performed.
So if you're the city attorney office and you're not sure of the reason of the language change, how are you able to make the change or look at it through that lens?
Because I look at the language, and if the language is wrong or the language needs to be changed, I don't go behind the motives. We asked them the motives, but they felt that it was an administrative thing that was encroaching on the department director.
So thank you for that explanation. What I'm asking as counsel, I'm saying I don't know, you're saying these changes are here. Well, what is the purpose to identify whether I want to support the change or not? I don't understand why these changes are coming forward.
Because the HRC department has administrative functions as a part of the executive branch. Administrative functions of, for example, awarding grants, disciplining, adjudicating civil rights complaints. And if there's an encroachment by an advisory board or it's not clear, you need to clarify that. And that was the request that we received from the department director. That was taken to the advisory board and explained, and then an analysis was done of the ordinances and a written opinion was issued describing what you're seeing here.
So these changes are based on the basic human services, looks like funding?
Well, some of it is funding. It's the grant awarding, yes.
There are 4 different sections of this ordinance that they're asking to make changes to. And this is just the first section that we're dealing with.
In the first section, President Wood, is that referring to the human services funding?
Correct.
Okay. So this is, to make sure I understand.
This is new section that's being, these lines 6 through 8 are new.
Right. And this is, if I understand what it's saying, is saying that currently the process without these changes is the advisory board members are looking at the human services funding, the 1.35%, and making decisions or scoring the grants. And then they're giving that to HRCS, and this is now changing that process. Is that what I understand?
That's changing the process, making advice and recommendation now. In practice, in the past, I'm not sure whether they were actually awarding it or not, but this was brought to our attention and requested of us by the HRCS director.
Councilmember Hussein?
Yeah, a couple things. Number one, I want to make clear for everybody that what we're looking to do is simply set a public hearing, right, for August 28th. And so there's a lot of time to vet this and ask good questions, and which I think you're asking a number of them. I saw what I saw and I heard what I heard during some of the process. I actually attended a meeting where some of the conversation occurred. It seemed to me, as a kind of a casual observer, that some folks on the board started asking questions. Essentially, it looks like per the ordinance, we're supposed to be doing X, Y, and Z. They have bylaws and things of that nature in place, and we aren't being supported in doing those types of things. Some folks from the public started saying, there's a whole lot more that this board has been empowered to do, as an example, via ordinance or through ordinance. And I think that created some measure of heartburn for folks, right? And so the city attorney went to one of the meetings and gave an opinion regarding charter, this being an advisory board, what they could and could not participate in or partake in. And then there was even a meeting where I believe it was Joseph Abood attended, and then proceeded to tell them what they could and could not do, which created heartburn for another class of people that said, well, hold on, this is in the ordinances. City attorney's office does not draft ordinance, nor do they approve. Well, I shouldn't say draft ordinance, but they don't approve ordinance changes. City council does that. And so then some folks went back to the drawing board, made some changes because they wanted, reflected in the ordinance what they believed to be appropriate per the charter and per past practice. And that's what's in front of us now. But again, I really do believe the genesis of this was a number of folks starting to ask questions about why are we meeting all year? Really, the only thing we're doing at this point is making recommendations on HRCS grants when it looks like we have the power to do and really the responsibility to do a whole lot more.
Yes.
And I can, this is only introducing and setting a public hearing, and I can present the opinion to the council before you have the public hearing, the one that they relied on at the board.
Okay. All right. Yes, Peter.
Correct me if I'm wrong, didn't we just amend this ordinance substantially related to the, I'm drawing a blank on the name of the organization, that we had the conflicts of interest related to it?
The last
former
we amended
director.
was, this ordinance had to do with 1.35.
Yeah, no, the process to award the grants, I thought we amended
Oh.
it based on.
Yes, there was it's not spelled out in the ordinance, there was a policy that they worked with the internal auditor to develop a policy on how the awards would be.
We didn't do the ordinance that same?
No, we
Okay.
didn't change it
I'm
in the ordinance.
I'm remembering it incorrectly, thank you.
Okay. All right. Again, let's go back. We have lines 6, 7, and 8 that add in, as I indicated, that would be making recommendations with an evaluation about awarding the grants. Then in line 16, it strikes the word department and uses just HRCS on page 3, there is on 10 an A that is struck from chapter 24, 240.04. That A is struck there. And then on line 20, the word "the" is struck, and HRCS is there, and department has been stricken. On page 4, on line 13, department was struck again. On line 15, services needed as identified by HRCS, the word advisory board and department has been stricken. And then line 19, department has been stricken. And line 20, 21, and 22 are the same as were previously, and that's the evaluation examination of elements of the basic human services is reserved to HRCS. The HRCS Advisory Board may make recommendations in connection with the evaluation and awarding of grants. On page 5, there is a change on line 12, which says distribution of funding based upon HRCS Advisory Board scoring recommendations, applications, metric histories, and the change was recommendation. And then line 20 says from prepared by the city attorney, the changes provide to them by HRCS on line 21. And those are the changes in this section. Are there any questions on this? All we would be doing is setting the public hearing for this one. Okay, Councilmember Hussein.
Sorry, yep. So I would move the resolution to set a public hearing. This would be for August 28th. And this pertains to amendments to Chapter 240, subsections .02, .03, and .04.
Okay. With that, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Oppose? Passes unanimously. All right, number H. If you look at page 1, the change is line 16. Between the groups in the city, formulate and carry out has been stricken, and the words evaluate and recommend. On line 17, examine reports of discrimination or prejudice has been stricken. Line 18, the word evaluating and recommending has been added. On line 21, the end of that line with discrimination practices relating to city government has been stricken. Then on page 2, line 21, the first word development has been stricken. Review and evaluate has been added to pamphlets to be provided to the city employees and has been stricken to study. Line 23, it shall, and it says give counsel, that has been stricken. line 7 on page 3, formulate and carry out has been changed to evaluate and recommend. Line 10 and 11 have been stricken. Examine it, and if it deems to be adverse, makes public reports of any complaints of discrimination, tension, or prejudice filed with or referred to it. Line 12, the word issue such has been changed to evaluate and recommend. Line 15 has been changed to evaluate and recommend. Line 19, the word developing has been stricken and evaluate and recommend. Page 4, line 7, it shall provide recommendations on, and has been stricken, advise any official or competent authority on. And those are the changes in this section. Are there any questions? Yes, sir.
We're on letter H, page 1. My question is, why were lines 17 that says examine reports of discrimination or prejudice, and on line 21 that says conciliate alleged discriminatory practices? I guess, why were those stricken as part of the functions?
Mr. City Attorney?
I believe that it's not working. I believe that this is coming from the HRCS director because they feel that that is a function of their department and that it's administrative, the way it's written is administrative on the part of the HRCS board. You can have the director at your public hearing to answer these questions.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, Councilmember Hussein.
Sure, I would move the resolution. This is to introduce and set a public hearing for August 28th, and this pertains to amendments to Chapter 273, subsections .01 and .04.
Okay, we have a motion. Are there any questions or concerns? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes. It is 7 o'clock. We can either hold I and J, or without going through them, we can just go ahead and set the public hearing. What is the pleasure of the body? You're saying set the public hearing? Is that what people feel? Okay. Then for resolution for I, and this is for Chapter 273, Section .06.
I would move the resolution to set the public hearing for August 28th.
All right, we have a motion before us. Are there any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. The next is for Section 273.08. Councilmember Hussein.
Sure, again, I would move the resolution to set a public hearing for August 28th at 7 p.m.
All right, we have a motion before us. Are there any other questions or concerns? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passed unanimously. Shelby, what I'm going to have you do is if you could briefly go over the South Washington Complex report and information that you have for us, then when we're done with that, we'll take a short break and then start our council meeting.
Sure, good evening. I distributed just a real brief spreadsheet. It's not very fancy, but it kind of gets to the point of what we've got currently at SWAC and where we're going to be displacing either people or programs. And then also a budget on kind of the second half of the sheet. So just real quick, you can see the first 4 items listed are just files and things. And then the bottom 5 or 6 areas there are actually people or programs. So that just shows you where they're currently at, where they're planning to go right now, and then of course the target date to move. And then that bottom section just again lists out the actual people and programs that we're moving, identified IT costs to make that move, along with the rest of the project management costs to make that happen, with a total at the bottom. We do have eligibility to use bond proceeds to cover that cost, or potentially selling whatever we can out of SWAC to cover the cost. So if there's valuable assets in that building at all that we can take before it's demolished, of course, we can apply those funds towards this move.
Okay.
This is very fluid, so I don't want to lock anything in, but this is kind of where we're headed right now.
Are there any questions for Shelby on this? Yes, Councilmember Spatafor.
Yeah, Shelby, I have a question, obviously indicated by raising my hand. The $203,000 you said we could use bond proceeds for, do you know if the River Caddis included that in their estimates of costs?
The cost for demolition totally of SWAC is just under $500,000 to tear down that building.
Mm-hmm.
This right now recently was plugged into the budget to cover this cost of displacement. Our budget's still being really crafted right now as we're getting through the schematic design phase, as noted in the River Caddis report, also in your packet for today.
Okay.
So we were able to find money to do this if we have to, if we can't come up with dollars from taking apart the building.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Are there other questions for Shelby? The only other thing, council members, in your packet, you will see the budget priorities for fiscal year 22-23. We will be working on the 24-25 budget priorities that are due October 1st. I ask each of you that have a committee to please have this on your committee each meeting, so you can go through this, so that we can do this in a timely manner. And having said that, we are going to adjourn for 5 minutes, and then we'll be back out here. We are adjourned.